And with that, greetings all Toastmasters and guests. We welcome you. We are Masters of Evaluation, an advanced and President's Distinguished Toastmasters Club. We meet the first, third Fridays of each month at 9 a.m. Pacific time. In other words, right now. I'm April, your Sergeant at Arms. Our Masters of Evaluation Clubs takes very seriously providing us all with a safe and secure meeting. We want you to know a high level of trust, honor, and respect for each one of us is not only encouraged, but expected. Masters of Evaluation members are focused on elevating their speaking, leadership, and evaluation skills, and doing so without offending others. As Sergeant at Arms, it's also my role to share a few practices to provide us with a smooth flowing meeting. For example, we ask you to silence your phones. We do want to see you. Hello there. Unless you are moving around, eating or drinking, then remember to turn the video off. And when you can return again, get that video back on because we do want to see you. In order to make our meeting more interactive, we ask everyone to usually keep your video and attention on. Finally, if you're serving in a speaking or functionary role, rename yourself, get that job title up there if it's not already on the background, so we can easily identify you and your role. These few recommendations will ensure we all have an enjoyable, comfortable, and memorable visit together. And I believe the recording has started. Am I correct? You tell me, John. And get ready to grin. At the end of our meeting, a group photo will be taken. Participants may switch off their cameras if you prefer not to be shot. That was pretty good. Okay, again, please remember to turn your phone back on once our meeting has concluded. Meanwhile, if anyone needs an agenda, virtual background, or has any questions, contact me directly in chat. April. It is now my pleasure to say welcome back, Jack. Jack has been away for quite a few months, and we are delighted to see you, Jack. And then we have our dynamic, always intentional and fun-loving elected president of Masters of Evaluation, Mr. John White. John.
Thank you very much, April. You stole my words. If we could just unmute and all welcome Jack back. We've missed him terribly. We've been thinking about you, Jack. It's so good to see you. We want to say hi. We want to hear your voice again. Great. Well, it's good to have you. I want to welcome our guests in no particular order. Let me scan the room. Kyle Murtaugh is the first. Well, no, Polina Karabach. Polina, how'd you find out about us?
I found out about you in a meeting dedicated to Ukraine last week that I joined, Shilin Speakers, Toastmasters Club, and I was kindly introduced to join your club's meeting. And I'm super glad to be here and see you all. Thank you for the invitation again.
Welcome. A guest that doesn't have a Muriel Shabazz connection. That's an inside club joke, Polina. Welcome to you. Kyle Murtaugh, a familiar name, feels like a member, but just a frequent guest. Kyle, refresh our memory on your story, sir.
Hi, John. Yeah, good to be here. I think I came to one of the early meetings in 2021 when the club was set up by Vicky, potentially. So, yeah, I knew it was a great club, so would love to come back. And here I am.
Wonderful. Welcome. Good to have you. You'll be speaking, as will Polina. Sheila LaChance, you're a guest technically, are you not? Considering joining, I believe? Or just teasing us?
Rumor control. I'm considering it, yes, but not ready yet. But happy to be here again for the second time at Masters of Evaluation. And I admit I'm not a master of anything. I'm a master of everything. Jack of all trades, master of nothing. So there you go. Good to be here.
Good to have you. And yes, we're all this. Feel the same way, but we are trying to elevate in all regards, including our evaluation. Tressa, you can't be seen, but can you be heard?
Yes, thank you for understanding. I'm a little under the weather, but I joined last time and I'm excited to get more information to potentially join the club. I'm so excited to hear what more we have today.
I hope you're feeling better. We can't see you. I trust you are masked. Just thumbs up so we can proceed. We know that we're in a healthy space. A little COVID humor. My apology. Have we covered all the business? I'm ready to induct David Graham. He's our newest member, but I think he's trying to avoid the induction. If anyone bumps into him, let him know he can run, but he can't hide. We're here to welcome him. So with that, it's my pleasure to turn it over to the Toastmaster of the day. She's a PM2. She's competed and represented us in past speech contests. It's always great to see her. I think we're seeing her more recently. I know her as Rumbi Madovi, but apparently Samantha is her middle name as well. Please welcome Toastmaster of the day, Rumbidzai. Rumbi?
Thank you so much, President. A pleasant good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you are. And welcome to our Toastmasters meeting today with the theme, Adjust Your Sails. Now, there is a common quotation, adjust your sails. I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. So with this, I say, ahoy! Welcome to our Masters of Evaluation cruise ship bound for destination speaking and leadership growth. Now, the captain of the ship, DTM John White, has given me the opportunity to take you on the cruise of a lifetime. Now, think about it. As we go through life, we identify our resolutions, our goals, and dreams with a predefined pathway of how we're going to get there. We are essentially the captains of our ships, and our destination are these goals. However, the rocky seas of life most certainly come up and mess up our perfectly curated plans. And the seas of life are simply not made up of fair wind or calm seas. But every now and then we get tossed around by rough weather, and it seems like we are about to sink in the storms that life has to offer. Now, I'd like to share with you my personal story back home. I had two relatives, and these relatives at that time they were diagnosed with HIV AIDS, and this was just the beginning of that disease, that horrible disease, and there was so much stigma associated with this disease, and thus the storm of life had suddenly come upon them. Now, one of them decided to take it to a new level of low. They fell into the pit of self-pity. They started drinking. They didn't care anymore about their lives. And sadly, this year, it's about 5 years after they sadly left the world, and they didn't make it. But the second relative of mine decided to adjust their sails. They decided to somewhat reinvent their lives, and they began to look at what would be their new normal. They changed their habits, they started taking the medications, and today she is a successful civil engineer. She was hit with the storms that life had to offer, but she adjusted herself and understood that she adjusted her sails and understood that she has the opportunity to redirect away from the storm and still make it to your final destination. And today, this is what this theme is all about. Now, without further ado, as we progress with this meeting, I would just like to let you know that we have a fantastic crew and all hands on deck for a special and memorable ride. And they will each tell you just how they do it. So I'd like to introduce these special role players, and I'll start with our Zoom master. So help me to welcome DTM John Graham to just let us know a little bit about your role today as DTM, as Zoom master.
Thank you, Rumi. My job is to let people in as they are late arrivals and to watch for Zoom bombers, to support you in any way I can with AV issues and problems, to help you in handling chat. And those of you that are not familiar with chat, it's for most people, if it's snapped in, it'll be in the far lower right-hand corner, but it could be anywhere. You can open it up anywhere you want, move it where you want. And then I want to ensure that you have a smooth connection. So I'm going to be trying to highlight speakers and evaluators in the major portions of the meeting. Thank you, Rumi. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Now, allow me to introduce our second role player who is joining us for 11 years and the waves to an unfamiliar territory. He's adjusting his sails by adapting and learning to integrate into the new society. Help me to introduce our general evaluator, Vincent Neer. Vincent, could you please let us know more about your role?
Yes, I'm happy to do so. General Evaluator is something which I thoroughly like because it gives me the opportunity to give feedback on those who have been giving feedback. And as you probably know, the shortest word in the English language, which carries the letters A, B, C, D, E, and F, is what? Yes, it's feedback. And at the end of the meeting, I will be giving you feedback, particularly on your evaluations, because I would like you to give feedback which is valuable to speakers and actors. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, allow me to welcome our next role player for today. Now, he has been a Toastmaster for 18 years, and he is our current president. Now, the waves in his life took the form of losing his hair, which he adjusted his sails by having a clean-shaven head. Now, help me to welcome our word master and grammarian, DTM John White. Could you please
Thank you.
help us with your role? Tell
I
us more
will,
about your
Rumi.
role.
Sorry. I offered 3 hardships and she took the lightest one. So anyway, it's been harder than being bald. I will be the word grammarian today. I will be watching for particularly wonderful and offensive uses of the English language. It's also my job to offer up the word of the day, and in the spirit of resetting your sails, the word of the day is adapt. Make something suitable for a new use or purpose, to modify. So an example would be hospitals have had to be adapted for modern medical practice, or you can become adjusted to new conditions. A large organization can be slow to adapt to change, or you can alter a text to make it suitable for filmmaking, broadcasting, or the stage. The mini-series was adapted from Wook's novel. So please, I encourage you to use adapt in all of your speaking. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. Player who is joining us from Indiana. Now, she has been a Toastmaster for 10 years, and the waves in her life took. Now, we can always adapt to this kind of new talent, learning new skills at the end of the day by, as Victoria would say, practice makes perfect. So help me to welcome our next role player, our timer, Toastmaster Marjorie.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Marjorie Duarte Sheffield, and today I'm the Toastmasters. I'm trying to readapt to Toastmasters after a while being off. I'm going to be timing the speakers. The 3 speakers today have their speech with 5 to 7 minutes. At 5, I will show the green. At 6, yellow. At 7, red. And for the responses on the table topics is 1 to 2 minutes, and the snap evaluation 1 minute. And I will try to work on that because I'm adapting again to the Zoom background. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marjorie. Now, without further ado, it is now time for the first segment of our cruise. And we have wonderful entertainment lined up for you in the form of prepared speeches. Now, for these prepared speeches, we will be having a total of 3 speakers who will be evaluated by 3 evaluators. I will start by introducing our first evaluator, who will be telling us the objectives for our first speaker. So in Masters of Evaluation, our evaluator will outline the objectives of the speech, and the Toastmaster of the evening will introduce the speaker introduction. So allow me to introduce our first evaluator for the first speaker, DTM Harold. DTM Harold, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could we have the timer put their reaction hand on there so then people can see where she is? Okay, great, thanks.
Fellow Toastmasters, and particularly Rumbidzai, you know I must make an embarrassing confession. That's right. I should be adapting to evaluating this particular speaker. But what did I do? That's almost shameful. I did not contact the speaker to get what kind of speech they're going to give. Oh, wow. How can I go on like this? I should be banished right now. But because I believe in perseverance, resilience, I will continue to give a evaluation. But you'll say, how can I give an evaluation if I'm ignorant of what she's going to speak about? Life goes on. I'll do my best, fellow Toastmasters. But note, I made a mistake that is not adaptable. You have to consult the speaker and find out what they're going to speak about and use that criteria. And I don't have it in front of me, but I don't let ignorance or barriers stay in my way. Fellow Toastmasters.
Now allow me to introduce our first speaker. Now our first speaker is joining us from Ireland. He's been a Toastmaster for 5.5 years. Now his waves came from battling multiple sclerosis. However, he adjusted his sails by his reaction to it. He decided that he was not going to let it rule him, but he decided to take a hold and empower himself to get ahead of that diagnosis. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Pat Caslin with his speech titled Pat Caslin.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Before speaking, let me just give you a little bit of introduction to this speech. This is a eulogy that I wrote for my mother, who died in November, that my sister delivered at her funeral. So that's just a little bit by way of background, mainly to people that didn't know her. It's entitled Stop That Nonsense. Mum, if you thought that one of us was going to stand up here and talk about you, let alone say nice things about you, you would have said to us, stop that nonsense, will you? And I suspect very few of my mother's family, bar her family and her close friends, knew her really well, as she had a quiet and calm reserve, but fabulous qualities about her that laid behind that reserve. She was born in 1930, the second of a family of 7 children, 2 sets of twins. And in 1939, when she was 9, her mother died, leaving her 62-year-old father with 7 children under 10. Mum, being the second eldest, and her older sisters then became the anchor points of that family, and they were the ones that had to bring up the smaller children. And that started her life of service to others. And that's how she lived her life. She was the silent worker, never asking, never complaining, just getting on with it. At 17, she left the small farm that she grew up in County Leitrim in the northwest of Ireland and came to Dublin, trained as a psychiatric nurse. And when finished that training, she went to London and trained as a general nurse. And there she made fantastic friends, friends that she had all her life. This was the 1940s and 50s. And she got, as she said, buffed around a lot. But it never did anyone any harm, in her view. She always remembered these times. And the friends that she had turned out to be a fantastic anchor for her later in life. She met my father, the love of her life, in the 1950s, and they were married in 1957, had 6 of us in 7 years. And we grew up with my grandparents, my father's parents, in modest house, but with wonderful solidity behind us. And my parents were drawn together by a mutual love of family. My dad was one of 12, my mother was one of 7, 6 of us and my grandparents. And all the relatives came to our house for their summer holidays. I don't know how she did that and just kept that house going with all of those people in it. But she did. And if she asked us to do something and we mumbled about it because we were playing with our cousins, she'd always say, God bless the silent worker. Just get on with it. She was great with neighbors and friends. The elderly neighbors were always in our house, and she looked after them and made sure that, while they enjoyed a whiskey, they wouldn't have one too many because she wouldn't want them falling when they got home. She helped out in the church and gave a lot of time and service to others. And she worked 9 days a week, 7 nights at home and 2 nights outside the home. She always told us that education is no burden to carry. And the irony of that was, at the time, she was working 9 days a week and carrying all the burden of ensuring that we all got educated. And it's only later in life that we really understood that. She had fabulous empathy. She would get on the bus to go into town, and she'd come home and she'd say, well, how was that trip? And she said, oh, I met somebody at the bus stop, perfect stranger, and I got talking to them on the bus, and they would pour out their life's problems to her. And I'd say to her, well, what did you say to them? She said, well, we got as far as town and I had to get off the bus. She just had that fabulous ability to connect with people. She was way ahead of her time with modern environmentalism. The clothes were washed in the sink. The washing was hung on the line. We grew our own organic vegetables. She used the bicycle or the bus to get into town, to go places. And the clothes we wore were all recycled. My older brother to me, to my next brother, to my next brother. You call them hand-me-downs now, but she was way ahead of her time on the recycling. We grew up in a very loving, solid house where there was never any fuss, there was never any drama. And achievements were celebrated. People were welcome. And it was a lovely place to be all our lives. She had 16 grandchildren, and every one of them turned up in the last couple of days to see you off, Mum. They came from New York, they came from Paris, they came from London, they came from Amsterdam. We will miss you. Your children will miss you, your grandchildren will miss you, your friends and your neighbors will miss you. But we will never, ever forget. And I'll stop that nonsense now, Mum. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pat, could we please have 1 minute to write some feedback for Pat, and we can send it to him via chat for his speech. Thank you. Now, without further ado, allow me to welcome our second evaluator, who will be giving us the objectives for our second speaker. Now, our second evaluator is joining us from California. She has been a Toastmaster for 14 years, and her waves came through the COVID pandemic, which impacted her business, which she sadly lost at that time. But her will to continue and creativity were her way to adjust her sales. Allow me to welcome DTM Judith Ferber to give us Kyle Mutak's objectives.
Thank you so much, Madam Toastmaster. Kyle is a contestant in an international speech contest. So I am going to evaluate him in a little bit differently than most evaluators. I will evaluate the content, visual, and the vocal of his speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, a little background about our second speaker, Kyle. So Kyle is a guest speaker joining us from Central Toastmasters. He's been a Toastmaster for 7 years. And the storm in his life came in the form of having to do a 100-mile ultra marathon. And he was totally broken at mile 96, which he puts as the worst pain in his life. But what helped him to adjust his sales was the support of his crew, his mom and his girlfriend, who fed him Jaffa cakes. And this encouraged him at a time when he needed it most and made a huge difference. And after 23 hours and 34 minutes, he completed the marathon. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome our second speaker, Kyle, with his speech title, Be There. Be There, Kyle Mutak. The floor is yours.
When I was 10, I loved it when my mum would take me to see my grandmother. I called her Gran, and it would take 3 hours in the car just to get to Gran's front door. But when you were greeted with a beaming smile, a huge hug, and loving eyes. But best of all, Gran would be there. If I was having a tough time at school, Gran would be there to say, Kyle, it's gonna be okay. Have a cupcake. If I wanted to play football in the park, Gran would be there, running around, kicking the ball at 82 years old. And if I wanted to watch an action movie, Gran would definitely be there. There was one time my mom went out with her friends, and Gran and I were left to watch a film. And this movie, it had gunfights, it had explosions, it had swear words. And 10-year-old me was loving it. When my mum came back, she said, "What did you two do tonight?" And my gran said, "We just watched a relaxing movie. Die Hard." And then I ran up to my mum and said, "Yippee-ki-yay, mother Kyle!" I loved being there with Gran. But have you noticed that when your loved one's going through hard times, it's not so easy to be there? When I was 12, we took that 3-hour drive to Gran's front door. And when no response. Worried, my mum used the spare key. And when she opened the door, Gran was on the floor, unconscious. She was rushed to hospital. It was a stroke. And when we visited, she was actually okay. She was smiling, laughing, telling all the nurses how hot she found Bruce Willis. I thought in no time we're going to be back in that park playing football. And we were. Till Gran fell again and broke her hip. that put her in a wheelchair. And then came dementia. And Gran lost her ability to speak. That put her in a care home. And during all of this, my mum would take that 3-hour drive a couple of times every week to be there with Gran. And me? I wasn't there. I didn't want to see Gran because I was scared. I was scared that seeing Gran in her wheelchair, not being able to speak, not being herself, would shatter this incredible memory I had of a wonderful woman full of joy, fun, and smiles. So for years, I wasn't there. And then when I turned 17, my mum was sick of it. She said, Kyle, what are you doing? Come and see your Gran. She needs to see you. And I would say, no, Mum, what's the point? She's not even my Gran anymore. My mum said, Kyle, she is your Gran. And she's dying. All I'm asking you to do is be there. Has your heart ever felt heavy with shame? I went with Mum to see Gran in her care home. You could smell that horrible hospital smell. You could feel the depressing silence. And Gran was lying on the bed with vacant eyes. I went over to her and said, Gran, it's Kyle. And I could see that she wanted to speak, but she couldn't. So I did the one thing that I thought would put a smile on Gran's face. I put on Die Hard. And for 2 hours, Gran and I watched gunfights, explosions, and heard lots of swear words. Gran had a beaming smile. And you could tell she was glad I was there because she squeezed my hand a little bit tighter. And I could see that she wanted to say, Yippee-ki-yay, Kyle, yippee-ki-yay. About a month later, the movie of my Gran's wonderful life came to an end. And ever since, I've always strived to be there for the people I love, to give them more of my time and love like Gran gave me when I was a kid. And I'm sure you want to be there for your loved ones too. So when they face hard times, be there with a huge smile. Be there with a big hug. Be there to share your version of Die Hard. You'll make wonderful memories that you will cherish for life. Gran and I will leave you with this question. Will you be there? Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Kyle, for that riveting speech. And as we adapt to the message, I would like to ask all of the members to be there for Kyle by giving him some feedback and sending it to his chat in the next minutes.
Thank you. Just to add to that, I put a link in the chat. I would be very grateful if everyone could click on that and give me some feedback on those questions I have in the form instead of on Zoom. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I trust that we've all managed to give Kyle his feedback. Now, allow me to welcome our third evaluator, who will be introducing the objectives for our third speaker. Now, I just wanted to point out that for our third evaluator, the storm that happened today was that the original evaluator for Paulina was unable to make it due to some power outages. And this was the storm that we had. However, the sails were adjusted because April decided to take it upon herself to come to the rescue and step in as Paulina's evaluator. So I'd just like to thank April and to ask her to take the floor to introduce us to Paulina's speech.
Excellent. Adapting. That's the word of the day. That's how I started my time with MOE. It's not the first time. I'm so delighted to have Paulina Karabakh to be our next speaker. She says, while it's not a pathways speech, it is her speech about the fear. The title of the speech, the purpose of the speech is a mix of informing us and entertaining us. And the audience can learn a bit more about the Ukraine in this speech. And I embrace you sharing with us. Look forward to it. And I will do my very best to evaluate kindly what's gone on in your life in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, allow me to introduce our speaker, Paulina. Now, Paulina is joining us from Art Talkers Club based in Ukraine. She has been a Toastmaster for 11.5 years. Now, the wave in her life, the storm, was that she was struggling with weight loss for a while in her 20s. And she adjusted her sails by returning to a healthy weight by using intuitive eating principles. Ladies and gentlemen, Toastmasters and guests, help me to welcome Paulina Karabakh, speech title, The Fear. The Fear, Paulina Karabakh.
I'm a 90s kid. I grew up in a big family in Kiev with my 3 older siblings, 2 brothers and a sister. And I loved doing everything that they did. I loved listening to the same music that they did. For instance, I loved listening to Michael Jackson's songs, whom I called Mika Jackson at that time. And I was just one happy kid. Although, if you would ask my parents if 90s was such a great decade, they wouldn't agree. They, both being biologists and working in scientific institutes in Kiev, needed to take 2-3 jobs on top of that, just to make the ends meet. There is a story in my family when my father could only buy 1 liter of milk for the whole family for dinner. A storm of life, as one may call it. Luckily, as time passed, the 2000s decade, the things started to gradually improve. I remember how my father was carrying 2 heavy bags from the supermarket, putting it on scales just to see and be impressed of how much food he can buy to his liking. I started to go to school, became a huge Madonna fan, and did what any teenager would do. I remember the first time that I felt a distinct fear of war. It was in September 11th, 2001. At that time, I knew nothing about the world and what was going on, but in my family, there were discussions that after the terrorist attack in New York City, an actual world war may start. And I remember to this day how terrified I was by this thought and how much I hoped that the war doesn't start. Luckily, as months and years pass, my worst expectations did not come true, and I continued to live my normal life. I entered university to study biology and now was listening a lot to the Ukrainian rock band called Okean Elzy. 2010 decade seemed to have brought the best quality of life that both my parents and me could remember. We could sometimes afford things that are not considered to be necessary. We could travel the world and see its beauty. 2014 brought the fear of war back and reinforced it. A storm of life once again occurred. Now, the war is in my country. It's in the places that I know and love. It was a terrifying experience. And somehow we all managed to adapt and live our seemingly normal lives. I started to work, got married, and was now listening a lot to the dark pop of Billie Eilish. Until 2022, when the fear of war reached its peak. And unfortunately, it got fully confirmed. Now, the war is everywhere in Ukraine. It's literally at my home now. As days and weeks pass, all I could hear in my head was, "Ой, у лузі червона калина," with the voice of Ukrainian singer Andriy Khlyvnyuk, the national anthem of Ukraine, and the sounds of sirens. The storm of life continues. But the fear of war seems to have dissolved now because the war continues. Although there are many different types of fears that still persist that are connected to the war. And there's one important realization that came that I want to share with you today. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no point of fearing the war per se, but we should be afraid of not being prepared enough for whatever danger that might come our way. We should be scared of not being informed enough about what is going on around and in the world that can impact us directly. And we should be terrified of not being helpful enough for our communities, for our country, in order to try to help prevent the bad things that may happen. So let us all be prepared, informed, and helpful. The power is in our hands. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Paulina, for a wonderful speech. Now, may we please have 1 minute and be helpful to Paulina in giving her feedback on her speech by informing her of what gripped you and where you would like to add some comments. Thank you so much, Marjorie. I'm not sure if this is the time we have our timers report for the speakers, or we can proceed straight away to the table topic segment. Could we please have the timing report for our speakers?
Okay. Pat Kathleen, you spoke for 6 minutes and 16 seconds. Kyle, 6 minutes 40. And Pauline, 6:22. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. Now, without further ado, I would now like to take you over to the next excursion that we have on our Masters of Evaluation cruise. And now I'll be handing you over to a fantastic crew member who will be taking up the role of our table topics master. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Toastmaster Tamara Evans.
Thank you. I have prepared a list in my mind of people whom I'm going to ask questions, but all the time I have to adapt this list and adapt to reality, because some people are not here, some people took the roles which they were not supposed to have at first, but I hope that everything will go nicely and smoothly. So the first question is, what would you say to aliens if they visited the Earth? And I would ask Shayla to answer this question, please. Shayla, ready?
Thank you. Give me the question one more time. What would you say to an alien? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. What would you say to aliens if they visited the Earth?
Okay. Well, I would ask them about themselves, because I already know about this planet, but I don't know anything about theirs, or where they're coming from and what their belief system is, what they think about, what they do on a daily basis. I'd be very curious. As far as me telling them what the Earth is like, that's all subjective. So I would be more interested in questioning them, giving them an interview, sitting down with them, arranging a time where we're all relaxed and comfortable with ourselves, maybe invite them to a Toastmasters meeting as a guest. All collectively ask them questions and have them speak. And most importantly, what we need to do for aliens or human beings is listen. Listen carefully to what they have to share. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we will ask Muriel to give the SNAP evaluation, and then I'll say a few words, because we will try to practice active listening project. We'll see how it goes. Muriel, please.
All right. Sheila, I think that was a wonderful response to what would you say to aliens? And your response was that you would want to know more about them. You know, I think that was an okay response, but I would have loved to have heard you tell them more about the planet, because our planet, because they would be so intrigued, so interested. That's why they came for the visit. I think that it would have been better if you would have flipped it and talked more about what they could expect to envision, what they could expect to experience, how to explore. And that might have been a better way to introduce them to this wonderful planet that we call Earth. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting. When I was listening, I was thinking, since I knew the questions in advance, I was thinking, if I were asked such a question, what would I answer? And I had an opportunity to think about it a little longer, and I thought I would invite them to our table, to our Toastmasters Club. And I was wondering, will anybody mention this, or will I be the only one to mention this? Sheila said this. So it's a wonderful idea. It's always good to ask questions, to listen to somebody's interests, way of life, beliefs, and to introduce ours. So this reciprocal conversation, reciprocal learning in being in a relaxed, comfortable atmosphere, that's wonderful. And it was mentioned by both the speaker and the evaluator. Thank you. Now the next question. If you had a time machine, would you rather travel to the past or to the future? We will ask Jack, please. If you had a time machine, would you rather travel to the past or to the future?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, future Toastmasters, and fellow Toastmasters. If I had a time machine, like the Time Machine book, I could do both. I would adapt, first going into the future to see what is going to happen. I would love to know what's going to happen, not even so far in the future. I would like to go one day and get those winning lottery numbers so I could treat you all to membership in Toastmasters. And then once I was in the future one day, I would go back one day, buy those raffle tickets, and win. That would be the best thing that I could think of. A little there, a little back. And I would adapt and change my whole life and live it differently. So, Madam Table Topics Master, a time machine would be great. If you could invent one, I would love it.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we will ask Vincent to give a snap evaluation to that wonderful response.
The two things would stand out. First of all, it's Jack's smile. We communicate so much with your faces. Sometimes it's called the mirror of our souls. And there's humor in it. He said, imagine you had this lottery tickets and you had us all laughing. And this is important. Humor is very much part of, it should be part of every day's life and everything which we do, because it resonates with the people around us. I think he worked his speech around well. Perhaps he could have started with a bit of a bang. Maybe he could have worked on having won the lottery ticket thanks to the information he had from his future visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. I liked the idea of winning and sharing with friends and inviting friends to become members of Toastmasters Club. And then very interesting step, one step forward, one step back, not too far this or that way. It's interesting and unusual. And Vincent adapted his evaluation to what was mentioned by the speaker and gave interesting suggestions. So thank you both. Now the next question. What kind of superpower would you like to have and why? And we will ask Teresa, please. We can't see you today, but maybe you would like to tell us something. Teresa?
Yes, thank you so much for being patient. I mean, today I'd like the superpower of overcoming all illness, of COVID just vacating everything bad, just get it out of the world. Wouldn't that be a great superpower? I would be well liked, and I think it would solve just so many issues. It's hard though, because anytime we try to take away the bad, we take away the good too, because there has to be opposites. But I do think it would be an amazing superpower to cure all disease and help everyone feel healthy and strong. And I'm hopeful that even if we can't just magically get that superpower, is still something that we can work towards. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. And we will ask John to give a snap evaluation to that, please.
Which John?
With John, the boss, the main boss.
All right, I'll be the first John to go. John, you pick it up. I love that she identified this utopian ideal solution that we would cure all illness. What a generous thing that she would be thinking about all of us. And yet, having done that, John, she mentioned something else, a downside to that. What did you think about that, John Graham?
You know, I think that was a brilliant thing to think about. I wouldn't have thought about that. I went through 21 days of COVID and I didn't feel an upside. But you're absolutely right. You know, it gives you an opportunity to look at other things, other priorities in life. So, except for the fact that you're laid out in a bed, you could get up and take up a new hobby. You could do something fun, except that doesn't quite happen. So the upside for me is not quite there. Back to you, John.
As for areas that I might improve, I've never flirted with a superpower. I think I would have been more excited, more Kaminsky-like with the possession of that power. There'd have been smile, there'd have been energy, there'd have been... That's what I would have changed. Madam Tabletop. Mr. Graham, did you have something to add? John?
Perfect. Thank you.
Madam Tabletop Master.
Thank you. It was so interesting how both Johns adapted to the situation, and they figured out how to participate both. Wonderful and interesting idea of never flirting with a disaster, with a superpower. And interesting how Teresa adapted the question to her today's situation, that she would like to use it to overcome her problem. Thank you. Thank all three of you. Now, maybe one more question, maybe two more. Imagine that you are 80 years old. What would you tell your grandchildren about your life? And we will ask Jesper.
Dear grandchildren, thank you for spending time with me today. I'd like to share stories of how I've adjusted my sales. Throughout the years, we've just gone through so much. For example, I remember just being the shortest kid in grade school and being picked last on whatever teams, basketball, soccer, softball, you name it. But that never stopped me. I picked up the lifestyle of becoming a runner and showed that, yes, I can be an athlete. So despite all the challenges that life throws at you, you can always overcome them and adjust your sales. Back to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. And now we will ask April to give a snap evaluation, please.
Thank you. I would be happy to snap those sails sailing along. And I love how you took Rumi's identification with the theme for today and plotted that. Your grandchildren will be so proud to have you as their grandfather. I think you'll do a little Jack Kaminsky styling with it. And maybe you'll throw in a little Judith and John, both of them. And certainly you want the brains of our Sandra. Your grandchildren are going to be just thrilled to have you as an example, because you've got this sparkle and sneaky way about you, Jesper, to educate them and make sure you're educating yourself in light of the fact that one day there will be grandchildren. Congratulations to you. Thank you.
Thank you both. It was enjoyable to listen how both of you adapted the question to today's topic and showed good example to the future generations. Thank you very much. And maybe the last question, do we have time for one more question? Do we? Yeah? one more. Okay. Do you think rock, scissors, paper is an effective solution for controversial issues? How about we ask Paulina, though she already made a speech, but since we don't have too many people present today, would you like to answer this, Paulina?
Yes, certainly I can. Well, this is a very very intricate question. Yeah, rock, scissors, and paper. Whether it can help answering some questions. Well, if I'm being very serious, I wouldn't let decide my future on that. But I recall a story from my student years when I was trying to use this tool that would say yes and no to make some decisions, which could be either way, and it led me not always to what I wanted. And since then, I thought that I'd better decide it on my own, and I'm pro critical thinking and analyzing and always weighing all the pros and cons. So yes, I will be in a team of not going into the rock, paper, and scissors. Thank you for this question.
Thank you. And we will now ask Kyle to give a snap evaluation. I'm looking forward to some suggestions from Kyle's part, because I listened to his training where he said that it's necessary when evaluate to give suggestions. What I'm looking forward to his giving this evaluation. Please, Kyle.
One of Paulina's great strengths is how warm she comes across. And you saw that in her speech, and you saw that in her table topic here today. She immediately dives into the question, and we had that personal experience as well of how she couldn't make decisions for herself, so she just let an app or something like that do it for her. I feel the only thing missing from this table topic was more of the table topic. I feel Paulina could have expanded. What types of decisions were you making? Was this, whether to put butter or ketchup on your roll, or was it that boyfriend or that boyfriend? Like, what types of decisions are we talking about here? There might have been opportunities for humor, and that would have expanded it out more and made your topic even more engaging than it already was. But really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, both of you. I did hear a suggestion from Kyle. I was wondering, will he be able to quickly figure out what kind of suggestion to offer? And he perfectly came out of the difficult situation. And thank you, Paulina. Thank all the participants of our table topics today. I really enjoyed that, learned a lot, and had an opportunity to practice impromptu evaluating. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Table Topics Master. That was a routine table topic session. Now, before we go on, I would just like to take it back to our timer for the day so that we can have the timing for the table topic segment.
Thank you, Madam Toastmasters. Sheila, 49 seconds. Jack, 1 minute 34. Teresa, 50 seconds. Jesper, 40. Paulina, 103. I encourage you to try to use 1 to 2 minutes as a table topic speaker. On the SNAP evaluation, everyone was on the time. Muriel, 48. Vincent, 51. I like this one. John, the first part, 20 seconds. Graham, up to 50. And they end up with 1.12. April, 47. And Kyle, 46 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to just take this time to welcome our newest member to Masters of Evaluation. Help me to welcome David Thompson.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that I was late again this week, but I was nearly on time.
Now, without further do, I'd just like to transition to the final segment of this wonderful cruise. And to take us on to this last segment is our wonderful crew member who will be taking us through the general evaluation. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Vincent for this last segment of the cruise. Vincent, the floor is yours.
Much obliged. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you who have been participating so far. And now comes the moment of truth, the moment where we will hear recommendations. And that is the essential part of our game. We don't want to clap our speakers and to show say, well done, because they won't learn anything on that level. I hope to hear from Harold and Judith some information and also from April information of how our speakers could do better next time. So first on stage is Harold, who will be evaluating Pat's speech.
Well, Toastmasters, most welcome guest. Pat Castleton gave a speech titled Stop That Nonsense, which he said it was a eulogy. Well, Toastmasters, he gave a skillful speech about his mother. I enjoyed the speech, his voice, tone, the way he framed the speech. 1930, she was the second child in a large family. He gives you a nice biography of his mother, the things she has achieved, her personality, the loving family that he was a member of. He goes on to point out what anchored her life was her friendships. And his speech, he ties the introduction to the conclusion, or I should say the conclusion is tied to the introduction. He concludes with stop the nonsense. Even though this was a skillful speech given by a skillful speaker, I enjoyed his words, the description, the dates, the words he used to make it vivid. Hand-me-down clothes, a loving family, a father that was 62 years old that inherited large family. What, to me, could have improved the speech slightly? He said his mother's life was anchored by her friends. But he did not name not one of her friends. I'm sure she had one of the friends had a character or was distinguished in some way that was with his mother. His style was fluid. The flow of ideas was consistent. I thought he could have given it more drama by pausing at certain points, especially where his mother worked as trained as a psychiatric nurse, became a nurse, and that helped the household. And at the very end, he pointed out for the eulogy, the grandchildren, 16 grandchildren, and I would emphasize that, came from all over the world, New York, Amsterdam, to be at the funeral. Was this speech powerful to me? Yes, it was. Simply because he was collected, quite calm, quite deliberate. I enjoyed the presentation. Hello, Toastmasters.
Thank you very much, Harold. The next person on this virtual stage, this world stage, this global stage, is Judith. Judith, she's going to evaluate Kyle's speech. Not an easy task, I presume.
We'll find out. Thank you, Madam, Mr. GE, and especially Kyle. So Kyle, your speech was a story about your grandmother, and which was indeed well done, and it's a wonderful story. Now, the thing is that if I am right, the transitional phrase in your story is be there, right? So if we want to talk about this, so here you are, you had a lot of shared experiences with her, the beginning, and it was a very good beginning. Now, what I think is, during the speech, if you want to use the be there, it needs to be a little more there. Such as, because you end up in a story that you're kind of looking back, what I learned and what I shouldn't be there, or I mean, I should have been there, but you were not emotionally there because you didn't know how to be there. So every now and then I would ask the question, if you want to ask the question, people, was I there? How is it to be there? Because many of us, I had my own experience when I actually wasn't sure how to be there for someone because I was terrified of looking at a person in the hospital who was all sick and lots of different things. So, so here we are. So what I think happens with the vocal thing here is when you saw your grandmother on the floor, you need to be quiet and pause and be scared and not to know what to do with the woman that you love so much and you shared so experiences. Because you do have a very energetic voice, and every so often you need to calm down. This is a story of your grandmother coming from your experiences. Eventually she'll die, and then there are the stages of that. And so the way I look at the speech, as I look at speeches in general, is how it affects me emotionally. And this is a speech that affects us emotionally because we somehow will go through it or we already had the experience. So what also in the visual part as well. So when your grandmother is in a home, that you need to be in the home somewhere, and then you need to be in a hospital in another place as you turn. So then we have different parts of that. Now there's one other thing, and this is just my personal thing. The end of that, will you be there? I mean, who knows? So my thing is about the ending is that the importance of being there, we have to understand the importance of being us, being there to people that we love so much, even that we're terrified of the whole idea of see a person who can speak and whatever condition we find sometimes people in, which is all vary. So I think that giving your thoughts of this, think about no matter how hard it is, because we are there for the good and we are there for the bad. So I would end the speech more like this as opposed to, will you be there? I mean, who knows? But I would use this phrase a little more in the speech so then we can also be part of the story. I think it's a great idea for this whole speech, and you have delivered it well. But let's just think about just the nuances of this speech as you're feeling it a little bit, so and see how we feel this. So thank you. Good luck with the speech.
Thank you very much, Judith. And the last evaluator, speech evaluator that is April. April, what have you got to say to Pauline?
Paulina, you are very captivating, my dear. You just took us in and started entertaining and informing us as you set out to do. I'm very grateful for you talking to us. I'm very sorry of what's happening to the Ukraine at this juncture. There were many different tracks that you took us on. You started off right away by saying, oh, you had been fearful and there was a weight loss struggle. And then you didn't say another peep about it. So it's like, for the next iteration of this speech, don't lead off with that because you're not telling us anything more about that struggle. Many of us have had that struggle. So don't give us an appetizer and then say, well, dinner's done. Please. I loved your coming back to the storm of life, the storm of life. That's pretty serious stuff, in my estimation. You said the word terrified 3 times. And I got some kind of syndrome on the first time you said it, but the other 2 times you said it, it was like too casually. How can you be casual and be terrified? I want to see more of what that terror is for you and for you to identify it in something personal. You said that you were going to, that suddenly the war was at home. How was it at home? Was the husband you have having to go off to war? Was there other family members, uncles, brothers, cousins? Were they involved? So that we know for you how much more personal it was, and a description of what went well, how you were proud of them, or what you missed, because maybe there were some real tragedies that emitted about the war situation. I loved it how you gave us, first off, that Michael Jackson walk back. And then a few minutes later, you were talking about the Madonna effect in your life. The way you point your fingers, here, if I can get my pointer up, you do that really well. You even went up like that. Honey, I think you've been watching Mick Jagger and you're just not talking to us about it. With all of those things, I want you to choreograph what you're doing with this speech. Now, there will be an opportunity to use it, to watch it on video. You're going around more, because I'm sure you're standing up. I want you to do like Jackson would, Madonna would, Jagger would, and make your moves choreographed to make your point. I think that can be done. It'll be even fun for you to do that. Now, you were talking about adapting to a normal life with war. I don't have any clue what that's like, but please find a way to bring us in about that. You were saying to us, you got to watch out because you want to be sure to be afraid enough to prevent other bad things from happening. You must be present and awake is what you were saying. I want you to give us an action conclusion. I don't know if you felt like you ran out of time, so that was enough to say, or if you felt like you'd warned us enough to be proactive. But I need more from you in that conclusion to bring us into it even further with you say, yes, and we've got to do something about that war and get more money over to the Ukraine or something stronger to end your very viable and quite captivating, as I say, presentation to us. Thank you. Wish you well.
Thank you very much, April, for your evaluation. And thank you much to all 3 evaluators. Before I allow John White to give his grammar review, the use of language, I just want to chip in my adapt, just so it counts twice. Adapt, adapt, adapt. And I will now be adapting to the grammarian's review. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I look at the clock. There simply isn't time, and I like to take 10 minutes at grammarian, so I'm going to try to truncate this. Users of adapt: Rumbidzai, Marjorie, Harold, April, Tamara, Jack, Vincent. I apologize if I missed others. Rumbidzai had me activating my carpal tunnel with her just beautiful use of language. Rocky seas of our life, tossed around rough weather, storms of life, and in the pit of self-pity. Very poetic. Pat Caslin, stop that nonsense. His mom was a quiet and calm reserve and great qualities that laid behind that reserve. A life of service to others, a silent worker. And then he mentioned anchor, solidity, and love of family. God bless the silent worker. Again, there simply isn't enough time. Kyle, would you be there? The speech had a swear word. Yippee-ki-yay. I heard a little too much M in that. I was fine. I saw other Toastmasters clutching their pearls, very on the edge. Then came to mention the inability to speak. It was very, very touching. And you didn't show up because you were scared. I loved Paulina Mika Jackson instead of Michael Jackson. That somehow struck my ear. The distant fear of war, sort of nice foreshadowing. Then the sounds of silence and the storms of life. Sheila, you would invite an alien to a Toastmaster meeting to ensure they'll never come back, right? I'm just joking. Be gone with you, aliens. And what else did you say? Listen carefully. Tamra, reciprocal relationship. Jack, he's a time traveler and he's a lottery winner and he won't forget us. Finally, Vincent, I love this. We can't say very well done and they won't be able, and then one won't learn. So that we have this standard. We love each other and here it is. And eventually you'll thank me for it. Judith, if you want to use the phrase be there, it needs to be there. I may make that into a tattoo or a t-shirt. That was deep. And then she looks at a speech about how it affects her emotionally. There was much more, but I have to conclude my report. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. General Evaluator. Let me give you a bit of feedback. One of the parts which was most important to me really is the use of language, and John has covered that beautifully well. There were lovely phrases which also resonated not just in my ears, but also on my sheet of paper. Let me start with table topics. I think there was something beautiful and repeatable because these two Johns playing around, doing a common evaluation with something new, refreshing, and this is what we need in Toastmasters Club. We should not just follow always the same pattern, but suddenly coming up with something which was played well is always most welcome. Recommendations. This is what Tamara said. Yes, the bread and butter of our club is giving recommendations in a obviously meaningful way so that we can be a better self ourselves. Starting with Harold. And he came down onto those things which were important in Pat's speech. I always like if you also look at structure, because contents is one thing, we might agree, we might not agree, but I believe that the openings are important. Did Pat really grab you when he started? Was there meaningful ending? Judas, a very interesting evaluation because she came to a conclusion which I did not reach. I thought that Kyle's triathlon of using to be there, to be there, to be there, he used it 3 times, is a very powerful rhetorical device. And just 1 minute later, at the end, he came to the conclusion, will you be there? So I found that we're talking about rhetorics, a very powerful tool, and I commend him for it. I also would recommend Judith to take a bit more time, breathe. You used 12 M's and 8 so's in 3 minutes. And as it, well, it's not just this. As a distinguished Toastmaster, you should know that you can replace these filler words with a breath, with a moment of silence. And at last, I would like to tell April also she had recommendations. She told Paulina what could be done better. And I think the key question was there, these personal war experience, because we all live in the perfect world. There's no war, there are no guns, no cannonballs. So what she'd recommended was to make it more relatable. Tell us how your husband, your cousins, your family members live in this situation. I think this drama is obviously something which we want to know and want to understand better. So to all of our evaluators, a wonderful job you've done tonight. Thank you very much. And back to our president.
Thank you. It's a great job. It's that rare family get together where you actually don't want to leave, but we're always running late. I just want to say, when you have a theme for a meeting, some people flirt with it, they go in and out, others embrace it. Rumbidzai, you were consistent on the theme. I mean, I thought I was going to have to take some Dramamine for seasickness. You had me with the seas and the storms and all that. Kudos to you. Tamara, I would suggest on an active listening, up front, explain to us this project so that we know what you're doing, and so that we also know, as someone who's working manuals, that that's something offered to us as well. And Harold, thank you for falling on your own petard and saying I should have reached out to someone, driving us to a higher standard at your own expense. So that's a great sign of a leader. We also like to acknowledge achievements of our membership in Toastmasters and outside. And while he's not here, perhaps he's hearing it from afar or when we tape this, that Ray Sweeney, he recently earned a higher diploma in coaching and positive psychology. So we'll give him kudos for that. I know he's been working very hard on that, and I've seen a difference in him as well. And speaking of people that are not in accredited programs, but just doing improvements, Judith, April, and a smattering of other people, this MOE is working, just the level of what you're offering. And it was always a very high level. I see the timer report is also being offered as well. Also, as you know, sometimes we work for Bling and Club Distinction. We've been President's Distinguished twice in a row. Some of us would like to continue that. There's educational components that are needed. And I'd like our VPE, Sandra Savage, to make a quick statement about that, please.
Yes, and in the interest of time, I will be sending out an email, but we have 5 months left to get some good points and make ourselves not only distinguished or select, but president's distinguished. And what we really need is level 1s and 2s. So in the next 5 months, if you are working on any projects and you haven't put them in already, that you've completed them, please do. And we would appreciate you awarding them to our club. So look for an email from me for specifics. And then if you can help us out with that, just let me know. Back to you, John.
Great. Jesper has reminded us, let's all be camera ready. Smile, look into the camera. We are going to take yet another picture and a reminder of what Jesper and his team are doing with these bi-weekly or monthly newsletters that are going out. Thank you so much, Jesper. I know MOE is much more visible in the world. I'm getting comments from people, so smile for that.
All right, I see everyone has their camera on. Perfect. Look at the camera, and I will go ahead and take it.
And great. And Marjorie, we didn't want to slight you. She has indicated her evaluation report. We are, as they say, it was getting so good to them that a few people ran over time, but anyway, it was solid content. How about some feedback from our guests? Polina, what did you think?
The meeting in general, yeah?
Yeah, just your thoughts, yes.
It's a very professional meeting. I really enjoyed it. It's you stand by your name. You are Masters of Aviation. I received so many valuable comments on my speech. I'm very grateful. It's not the first time that I'm delivering this speech, and this is the most content of feedback that I've ever received in the meeting. So I'm really grateful, and I'm really glad to join it. It's a really enjoyable and valuable experience. So thank you all. It's an honor for me also to deliver a speech today and be with you today.
It's really great to have you. It was a wonderful speech. Kyle, thank you for being here. It's our pleasure to be there for you and your speech. What were your thoughts?
Thanks so much, John, and everyone for the feedback and the opportunity. Really enjoyed the meeting. I always love the shotgun evaluations. I think it's a great way to keep everyone on their toes throughout. So I think more clubs should definitely adopt that. And yeah, we'd definitely love to come back in the next 11 months at some point. So yeah, would love to drop back in. Thanks for having me.
We will be here, he said emotionally. We will be here. Taking on Judith's feedback. David, Robert, Vardy, Thompson, you're on the screen. Want to say hi again to us? Welcome. Next meeting, we will install you, my friend, as a new member. Sheila, you're inviting aliens to Toastmasters meeting. Which meeting would you invite them to? Their first Toastmaster meeting would be where, Sheila?
The next one. I'll be there, and I'm going to invite my alien friend to be there, to be here at OE.
Great. It was good to see you. Muriel Shabazz, stylishly late by a minute. It's great to see you. Pat was wonderful. Kyle, you talked about the shotgun. If you want laser focus, reach out to Pat. You'll get it. Prepare yourself for that evaluation. Anything that we did not cover today? I know we're running a little late. All right, it sounds like we're tapped out at this point. It's just been too much good. We have to go on to the next thing in our life. It's a wonderful meeting. Well done from start to finish. We'll have a great weekend, and we will see you soon. This meeting is adjourned.